So I get so many questions all about what is a narcissist attachment style and really trying to get to the bottom of it. So in this video, I wanted to share with you not only the 9 major components of narcissistic personality disorder, but actually sort of pull that out and separate out some of the differences between attachment styles and how to be clear about like a DA versus a narcissist, an FA versus a narcissist, an AP versus a narcissist, or perhaps a narcissist with one of those attachment styles. So, first and foremost, I think that narcissism exists along a continuum, just like anything else. And I think that it's really important to recognize that there's a whole, dynamic of narcissistic personality disorder, and that disordered element, having a personality disorder, is very different from just having an insecure attachment style. So, to be clear, every single person has an attachment style, all people, including narcissists, but there's no, particular attachment style that all narcissists are. So, I want to really extrapolate out some of the differences. So, I want to start first by touching on the most common themes that we'll see. I most often see narcissists as fearful avoidant attachment style with a really strong anxious side, or anxious preoccupied attachment style with a strong fearful avoidant side. And these tend to be, sort of as our secondary attachment style, the most common. Now, it's interesting because I think the most assumptions people make are that narcissists are dismissive avoidant attachment styles. I would say that's actually the least likely outcome. But if it is going to happen, it's going to be a DA with a strong secondary FA attachment style. What I see the most, and the reason it's actually really important here to recognize, is narcissists, because of this dynamic of needing constant narcissistic supply, that very much puts them into the most anxious side of their attachment style. Hence why most narcissists tend to be AP with a strong, strong secondary FA. And what this is narcissists, if you pay attention, they're constantly looking for attention, for connection, for closeness. Now, I want to be super clear. This by no means means that people with an FA leaning AP or AP leaning FA attachment style pairing, it doesn't mean that these people are narcissists at all. Like a very, very small percentage of these individuals with this attachment style output actually are narcissists. But I want to really show you some of the differences here. So we know with narcissistic personality disorder, one of the biggest things is NPD individuals have this grandiose sense of self-importance. They constantly have this like thirst and hunger for being seen as important and significant and great. And when we look at all the different attachment styles, if we start with DAs like to kind of fade into the background. Dismissive avoidants don't really like to be the center of attention. They do appreciate acknowledgement and appreciation, but in really small forms. Like a true DA, if you ever give them a huge compliment, like you're the best partner ever, they will feel usually avoidant around that. They won't keep hungering for more of that. Whereas FAs too, they don't really love to be the center of attention. APs can be a little more comfortable in the center of attention out of those three. But again, APs, a true AP attachment style tends to also really value making other people feel important, special, all that sort of thing. So one of the first things you'll see that's a difference between a true narcissist versus the insecure attachment styles is that none of those insecure attachment styles, just as the attachment style itself, is likely to have a really grandiose sense of self-importance. Like they usually aren't putting other people way down below them or seeking all this supply and attention. Like that's, tends to be quite foreign to all three of those styles. Again, because APs tend to like to put other people above themselves, because FAs tend to shy away from being the center of attention because it feels too vulnerable to them. And same with DAs, they tend to pull away from, any big acknowledgments or appreciation. The second part we have here, and I'm going to go through all 9 major characteristics, is this dynamic for narcissists of having this like massive preoccupation with power, success, beauty, or love. And, sometimes we'll see certain styles be like, interested in beauty or success or all these different things. But for a narcissist, it's like this preoccupation. Like, and they tend to believe in themselves in these areas in these really grandiose ways. Like, we'll often see, for example, like I referenced this before, but I had a client once, and that client would always say, okay, nobody has felt love like I have felt love for this person. Nobody's love compares to ours. And their relationship was in shambles and really coming to an end when they came to see me. And it was just a slightly diluted version. Like I'm sure that he really loved her. I think that she was really falling out of love with him. So there's this idea that this is the best. This is the greatest love, And it's always spoken about whether it's success or power or beauty in these really extreme kind of sweeping statements and more extreme forms. Number three, there's this massive sense of entitlement. And what you'll see, by the way, with the preoccupation of beauty, success, power, or love, APs, FAs, DAs, they can, we can see preoccupation for the AP, but it's not preoccupation around their love being more grandiose and greater than anybody else. It's preoccupation because they are usually struggling a little bit with love addiction, so to speak. And they're preoccupied with their partner, not preoccupied with their experience in the relationship to their partner being better than everybody else's, if that makes sense, just to clarify. Or again, if you see these dynamics where an AP may, from a place of insecurity, really focus on beauty, or an FA, it's not because they're I am way more beautiful than everybody else. It's coming from this place of trying to be worthy of acceptance or avoid rejection. And again, power components, dynamics along those lines, if you're seeing that kind of situation, again, if FAs or DAs tend to be more focused on those sorts of things, it's not power over other people. It's more self-empowerment, trying to have freedom and control over their own lives. So you'll see these really important differences here. The next big piece here is this sense of entitlement. So, we tend to see really strongly narcissists feel entitled to others' time, to others' resources, to others' energy. They feel like they should be treated as special in this kind of entitled way. And again, you just won't really see that from the insecure attachment styles, unless they're actually a narcissist, right? You won't see this huge sense of entitlement. People can have traces of entitlement that can also come along a continuum, and we may see people struggle with having this sense of entitlement, but with a narcissist, that will be in combination with many of these other traits, as well as even their dynamic around entitlement can be more extreme. Our next one is narcissists tend to think that they can only be around people who are special or important. They tend to really value power, status, all these different dynamics. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier or not, but this is actually right out of the DSM. So these things that I'm sharing come from the DSM. And this is, you can't use this and then go diagnose people in your life, obviously. That's not what this is intended for, but it's intended to provide education and resource and more understanding about narcissistic personality disorder versus different attachment styles. And again, what you'll see is when you look at an AP, there can be little elements sometimes of wanting to be around special people and kind of taking to that. FAs, you generally see FAs because they have such a betrayal wound. They have such a value around authenticity. So they tend to actually sometimes feel like they want to go in the opposite direction of valuing specialness or significance. They tend to be I don't care about that. I care about the person. And it's because they're yearning for that authenticity to create that authentic connection and depth so they can feel safe and there's a sense of loyalty, human to human. So you'll usually see FAs be in the opposite direction of that. And DAs, again, they tend to just be very independent and they tend to not be really valuing and prioritizing their life based around the people or the relationships they're around. And they do tend to have this sense of need for authenticity as well. Our next big one is feeling they are deserving of exploiting other people for their own gain. So narcissists will tend to exploit people in many different ways as much as they can. And it's not oh, they're in a vulnerable position and they're asking for help or support. It's premeditating these things for their gain, even if they can go out and do these things on their own. So it's there's this sort of insidious component here to a certain degree. Whereas you won't really see DAs tend to just be more independent. FAs, they tend to probably overgive in their relationships and under receive too often, if anything. And APs, they tend to be the same way, right? They'll really give to people and try to please them rather than exploit them. And they can actually have a hard time receiving. So again, you'll see these differences, right? Just because a narcissist is likely to be AP with strong secondary FA first, FA with strong secondary AP second, DA with strong secondary FA third, just because those tend to be the sort of pairings and matchups, it doesn't mean that all of those attachment style types are narcissist at all, right? You'll see such strong differences between just somebody who has an insecure attachment style, first and secondary, versus an actual narcissist. And to continue on here, you'll generally see the strong sense of arrogance. We may or may not see that with certain attachment styles, but again, you need 5 of the 9 here. There can be this huge lack of empathy with narcissists. It's one of their like sort of most overt and obvious characteristics. And again, you'll see as a general rule, yes, APs, FAs, they tend to sympathize sometimes a little more than they empathize, but they're really good at empathizing too and putting themselves in other people's shoes and really deeply. I have other videos about sympathy versus empathy on this channel, by the way, and the differences. But you'll tend to see that they show up very well to empathize and think of how other people feel. DAs tend to actually empathize more than they sympathize, but they just won't express it because it feels vulnerable or weak. So often they kind of like have internal empathy that they'll express a lot, like in sessions with me, when I was working with a lot of DAs in the past. So you'd see different dynamics about that, or they'll express to people they feel really comfortable being more expressive around. And then again, you'll see like narcissists, they tend to just struggle with empathy as a whole. Another huge one is narcissists tend to really want to constantly be admired or seen as special or unique or, just something really special about them. DAs, DAs are like, just give me my space and independence and I'm happy. They appreciate like I said earlier, like small acknowledgments, but if you give DAs huge compliments, they tend to just run in the other direction. FAs, again, they often have this unworthiness wound, so they'll kind of hide from things like that, or they'll worry, they'll feel like this threat to being connected to somebody if they feel like they're too admired by somebody. So they tend to value like connection over admiration massively. And APs, they can enjoy feeling admired and wanted, and it's important, but they tend to admire and want people even more than they feel that way towards somebody. So, or feel that way from somebody. And then I do want to say as well, if there's any point in here where you're seeing, just before I share the last one, if you see this dynamic of like, I've been through a relationship with a narcissist, an ex, a current partner, a family member, anything like that, it's really important to do deep healing work on your subconscious mind so you can learn to love again and trust again and connect again and feel stable and re-regulate your nervous system. Anyways, I have a whole course you can check out for free for 14 days called Overcoming Narcissistic Abuse. And it's all about like really deeply healing on the other side of that and exactly the steps you need to take to do so and to get there. And it's really powerful. You'll see results very fast. You can get through all of it in 14 days for sure. And you can check it out for free for that whole 14-day period down below. And when you go into PDS for the 14 days, we have daily webinars. Go to the webinar calendar. You'll see that there's webinars with me 3 days a week. You'll see that there are webinars with our other trained coaches and facilitators in there. And we have like community events. Literally, there's something once every day from Monday to Saturday, and sometimes 2 or 3 times in a day, just events for like your healing, your growth, your support. They're guided, all that kind of stuff. So you can check that all out for free for 14 days using the link below. And then last but not least, narcissists tend to have a preoccupation with envy. They either think that others are envious of them or they feel envious of others. So again, 5 of those 9 things tend to make a huge difference. Again, we'll see like FAs, APs, DAs, sure, they can all have little bits of envy sometimes, but it tends to be like fairly moderate. I would say like jealousy and feeling like your relationship is threatened. So envy is kind of like comparing yourself to others and feeling envious. Jealousy is in relationships, fearing the relationship being threatened. And that can happen on like one-off situations, more for APs and FAs. Whereas like this envy, comparison, who's better, who's more powerful, who's further ahead, who's achieved more, that like preoccupation with all people in life is where it tends to be more related to narcissistic personality disorder. So, anyways, I hope this makes sense. I hope this answered a lot of those burning questions. And thank you so much for watching. Please check out our 14-day free trial before it runs out. And I will see you in the next video.